A trader by profession, Livingston caught on quickly and acquired the ability to speak the Iroquois language, an ability many traders didn't have. He also helped build a Van Rensselaer fortune. In 1678 Nicholas was only in his early 40s, but he began aging rapidly. He took to his sickbed with an illness that could not be diagnosed. One day he decided the end was near and called for a servant to bring a pen and paper for his will. Instead Livingston appeared. "No, no, send him away. He's going to marry my widow," cried Van Rensselaer, just before he died. 7. If ever a will was composed, it was never found. But some have suggested that, if you believe a Van Rensselaer rumor, still circulated to this day, Nicholas was poisoned. 8 Nicholas the mystic had been right. Within 8 months Sir and Robert Livingston were married. Livingston acquired his boss's widow, and became the wealthy man he had designed to become. When he met Kidd, Livingston was the wealthiest man in New York. As a Scot, Livingston was embroiled in the religious wars that raged back home, and that spilled over into the colonies. His relatives in Scotland, the Earls of Callendar and Linlithgow, had fought on the wrong side of what became the Glorious Revolution. It was a precarious time, because of the religious upheaval, and many Scots and French Huguenots were forced to leave the country. The hostilities did not end once the immigrants reached America. In New York the war was between Jacob Leisler and the Catholics. And in his frantic effort to keep the Pope from controlling New York, Leisler seized the city. When Britain later sent a new governor, Leisler attempted to defend New York against him. His rabid anti-Catholic sentiment ended with his trial and that of 5 Confederates. The same evidence admitted in trial, freed 4 and sentenced 2 to hanging. Jacob Leisler was hanged on the land where the Manhattan side of the Brooklyn Bridge would be built. A bit of jury tampering may have helped the 4 who were acquitted under a black flag 59 dead. One of these possible beneficiaries was Bettis Delanoy. His family subsequently dropped the last letter of their name and become the Delanos. A later alliance through marriage would result in the Delano-Roosevelt family. With Leisler out of the way, the power vacuum allowed Huguenot families such as the Delanois, and their allies among the Dutch power base, including Livingston, to prosper. Livingston was now in prime position to expand his empire. He traded with whomever he could, and owned outright or owned shares in several merchant ships. One of these returned 500% in one 1694 voyage alone. But success had its downside. Through customs agent of the mayor of New York City, Livingston was charged with the crime of trading with the French. It is possible that the charge was correct, as not all legitimate voyages yielded such high returns. But the mayor simply wanted a share in the profits. The case was brought before the grand jury, whose chairman was William Kidd. It is not known if this case also involved jury tampering, but Livingston was spared. Jury chairman Kidd refused to indict. Kidd and his new friend Livingston went to England to increase their fortunes. The deal that was struck with Richard Gute, Lord Bellamont, involved several other figures who moved in commercial and government circles. The list included John Somers, the Lord Chancellor, Edward Russell, the Earl of Orford, who was the First Lord of the Admiralty, Henry Sidney, the Earl of Romney, Charles Talbot, the Duke of Shrewsbury, Edward Harrison, a director of the East India Company, and Richard Blackham, who would later be imprisoned for bribery and currency manipulation. King William III was destined to claim 10% of the return in exchange for his blessing of Kidd's pirate hunting enterprise. 10 Livingston and Kidd were the co-partners of the agreement, and together they were required to put up £6,000 to purchase and refit a ship named Adventure Galley. This was approximately 1/5 of the funds needed for the voyage, and in turn the partners would receive 1/5 of the prizes captured, and get to keep the ship. The men who signed on as crew members were on a no purchase, no pay 60 piracy, a merry and a short life contract. This type of contract was used by whalers and pirate ships, and it stated that, if no prizes were obtained, no pay would be given. Therefore, the inducement to capture something was great. Kidd and crew were commissioned to capture pirate ships. Their papers specifically targeted Thomas Dew of Rhode Island, and 2 New York-based pirates, Thomas Wake and William Mays. For good measure the commission added any and all pirates, freebooters, and sea rovers. Commission in hand, Kidd sailed out of London to New York. Along the way he captured a French fishing ship, not much of a catch, but perhaps practice for his new crew. In New York, Kidd recruited more men for his adventure, and finally started his planned voyage on September 5, 1696. The destination was the Indian Ocean, where the large island of Madagascar was actually a pirate nation. 11 The one-time French station Fort Dauphin had become the home base of the pirate Abraham Samuel, who was called King Samuel. The pirate king welcomed other pirates who presented him with gifts. His kingdom and other pirate strongholds, as well as slave ports run by merchants with no national affiliation, made Madagascar a truly wild locale. Libertalia St. Mary's was a small island off the coast of Madagascar, where the pirates formed a democratic nation called Libertalia. It may have been the world's first true democracy, in which each man had an equal vote. It just happened to be a pirate nation. Upon reaching the mature age of about 30, many of the pirates retired to Libertalia. Land was free, exotic Polynesian African women were plentiful, and the locals were not hostile. Plantations were started and trading posts were established. Even though each man might be able to return to his home port with a small fortune, many chose to live on the island. It is a mystery just why Kidd sailed into St. Mary's, if by this time he did not intend to go pirate. As a pirate hunter, he apparently had under a black flag 61 no intention to attack the pirate port. Instead he landed, to repair his ship and recruit new men. But once he landed, his situation grew worse. A greater enemy than the English would attack Kidd's crew: disease. On the small island in the Indian Ocean, 1/5 of the crew succumbed. Kidd needed to replace even more men than he originally intended. He took on new members, all of whom were most likely experienced pirates. The major distinction separating the privateer from the pirate was a piece of paper, the commission that gave the privateer captain the right to take certain prizes made his actions legal, whereas seizing bounty without such a commission was an offense punishable by hanging. Commissions would occasionally be honored, and sometimes would expire, because of the end of a war. Unfortunately, the privateer at sea had little way of knowing that hostilities had ended, and that a truce voided his commission.